Remember a few weeks back when those first couple of WandaVision episodes came back and everybody was saying, oh, this isn't it. They finally have lost. It sucks. It's not as good. My, how things have changed. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did. And if you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to that channel, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. Holy shit! Now that's an episode. Like you can say how good episode 4 was. I've been into the series the entire time, but this episode was bananas. This episode of WandaVision is called on a very special episode, and it follows. Looks like we're in the mid '80s sitcoms, and it sort of lends itself to being. You can tell by the intro, which I scream like a little schoolgirl because this is now in the era of sitcoms where I was born. The Family Ties intro with the coloring, kudos to you, but it's also still a little bit from Full House with like the intro being on the blanket outside, a little bit of Growing Pains. If you're an '80s kid, this sitcom, the style of the hair and everything is sort of in that wheelhouse. But if you want to talk about the sitcoms, I'll listen to our podcast where we talk about the history of sitcoms through WandaVision. We'll dive into all of that sweet stuff there. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of the episode. Spoilers for those of you who have not watched the episode. What are you doing here? We're going to talk about some stuff. Before we talk about the ending scene, where so many of you have decided to ruin it for everybody else and just post on Twitter without any type of caution, just reckless abandon. Talk about a couple other scenes that I thoroughly enjoyed in this episode. This was an episode that was sort of a hybrid, which I figure they're going to do probably into the last two episodes where we're not in sitcom land at all anymore. These two sort of are a hybrid where you're half the episodes a lot of the sitcom stuff and half the episodes a lot of the Sword stuff that we happen with Darcy, Wu, and the rest of Sword. There's a lot packed into this episode. We sort of learned at the end of the last episode that Wanda was in control. Monica comes out and says, "No, Wanda's doing this," and we get sort of a double down stamp on that in this. As there's a moment when Wanda comes out of the bubble and she is about to wreck shop. She is in full blown Wanda don't F with me Thanos, I will destroy your life mode. She is fully back with her Sokovian accent, which is important because she no longer is like, I'm not hiding from you guys. The thesis of why Wanda has lost her accent in this has always been that she's on the run, and that's one of her most distinguishable traits. So if she loses that, she can kind of go on these spy missions and hide a little bit. She's not hiding from anybody. She doesn't care. She's out there. It's like, screw it. This is who I am. She comes out and it's about direct shot. It's clear that she does have some type of knowledge of that. She knows what she's doing. But what's important is there is a line that she says to Vision where she says she doesn't know how this all started. So I think she is aware of doing this. She just doesn't know how point A got to point B. There's a gap somewhere that I think someone or some people have sort of facilitated this grand scheme to keep Wanda and Vision within there. We learn that Wanda went to go steal Vision's dead corpse and has now sort of reanimated him in this bubble. We see that a lot of the things that are happening inside that bubble are real, and that if they were taken out, they would still be real, which is sort of a very much plays into the House of M comics and sort of that stuff. What happens in that world can then become out. It just sort of plays with the fabric of reality. We learn that basically Wanda is spinning discs and she is controlling all of this at the same time. She's aware of every single fabric that happens in that bubble and keeping everybody within this sort of controlled state of being. Vision, on the other hand, does use his powers to sort of take someone out of that realm of unconsciousness. And we learn that they're not just gone; they're sort of in a sunken place where they can see and feel all of this, and they're just kind of screaming at the top of their lungs to get some regaining power of their consciousness. And unfortunately, Wanda's not allowing that. Vision has to put them back in so that they don't just completely explode and freak out. But Vision is very concerned and troubled by all the things, and he sort of breaks down the aspect of what Wanda's doing and and the good of it and why she's doing it. He's questions it, and she's like, "I'm doing this for you." They almost have blows. it's a great sequence of events. Just sort of, we've been seeing Vision sort of derail this on and on again. Like, I don't think this is normal, nor do I think this is right. Which I think is a part of, because in this world a lot of these things are Wanda's thoughts and things. I think that's a part of Wanda's subconscious, sort of feeding through Vision as to everything she's doing in here doesn't seem quite on the up and up. We get Sword showing that they may not be in the best interest of Wanda. They're just assessing a threat, and while it is very, we have back knowledge of Wanda as an audience, it is very uh, understandable that they're in this situation because Wanda is coming off very much like the villain in all of this. In addition to Vision, another person that Wanda can't seem to control or have much effect on in this world is Agnes, who most people have sort of agreed or believe is Agatha Harkness. If you shorten those words, that's what you get. Who is seems to be aware and cognizant of a lot of things that are happening in this world, and it doesn't phase her, which leads a lot of people, to me included, to sort of think that she has some type of hand in setting all of this up. But I think there's more at play than just her, because one, I feel like Marvel doesn't play on the nose that easy all the time. I think they might point that way, and while that might be a part of it, I don't think it's all of it. I don't think we're gonna sit in that completely. I think it was pretty cool to be a little bit meta in this episode. There's a point when Darcy and Monica are having a conversation, and we sort of go through yeah, well, she's a bad mofo. She was about to take out Thanos by herself if it wasn't for these rockets, and Thanos sort of cheating. And that's what all of us Marvel fans have been saying. Like, she was wrecking shop. If Thanos not basically sacrificed himself and other people, he'd have taken that L to Wanda. What's fascinating about that sequence, though, is they then follow that up with, like, oh, Captain Marvel was good too, and it's interesting to see the response that Monica gives in reaction to Captain Marvel's name being said. It's clear that something has occurred in their life, that they are not as close as they were when she was just a tiny person and picking the color scheme for her uniform. And things done changed. I wonder if it because when Monica's mom got sick, maybe Carol wasn't around. I don't know, but it'll be interesting to sort of play on that a little bit. Sort of also go into Monica, we sort of see that there are some tidbits of her DNA and her pictures and her scans not coming back properly. It would be interesting to see that if once she got expelled from the dome, the interference, that she gained some type of power from crossing back and forth. Plus, with like Wanda's power, plus that combined may have done something to sort of give her the power set that we know she gains in the Marvel comics. But if you've seen the episode, you know what we're all here to talk about. As great as this episode is, and it is a phenomenally done episode, that button at the end just made everybody. It broke Twitter for a while. It broke me for a little bit. I couldn't sleep for a few hours. Those of you who are not aware, the end of the episode, I think most people, I was one of them, have been saying that as much as they're mentioning Pietro and Quicksilver, um, that he's going to show up in this. What I was of the belief is that they were going to put Aaron Taylor, the Quicksilver that we know and love for Marvel, in there. No, we do get a Quicksilver, but we get Evan Peters' Quicksilver from the X-Men franchise, which is just mind-blowing. It's fucking nuts. On a couple of levels. One, it sort of shows that now we're entering the world where these things can sort of merge. It may be a multiverse thing, it may not be, but we are now at least putting the seed or the conceit on board that, hey, the versions of the X-Men that you saw in that world can exist here. It also opens up the door for the X-Men just always sort of existing if we're starting to merge in these worlds. Um, and while I don't necessarily think this is the Quicksilver that's going to replace the Quicksilver that we know, I think it is a cool play that something else is at work here. Whether it be Nightmare or Mephisto or even Agatha playing some part in this to kind of like play with Wanda's brain. It's clear that Wanda doesn't know who this person is and doesn't really, just by the end of the way that she interacts with as Quicksilver, isn't aware or knows what this is, but something is happening that it does create a lot more questions. And I am so fascinated to see how they explain in this world the difference of why this Quicksilver actually even appears. But I think there's more afoot than this just being a Quicksilver to replace her Quicksilver. I think something else is happening. What that is, I don't quite know, but I am excited to see whatever the hell it is. If nothing else, this puts something like Deadpool on the board for this MCU if we're already starting to borrow some of the likenesses and looks of those characters in this world. If you give me a point where Ian McKellen shows up, hell, even Fassbender shows up as as Magneto, I may lose my shit. I might not even be able to do these anymore because I'll just be in a coma somewhere. It's funny, Elizabeth Olsen did say that there was going to be something that happens on this show that a character's introduced that is as big as a certain character showing up on The Mandalorian. I won't spoil that for people if you haven't seen that. Um, and I say this is pretty damn close. I think we're in the mad dash for the rest of this series. I think we're going to have two episodes that are probably a hybrid of a sitcom and whatnot, something in the 90s and something dealing with 2000s mockumentary styles like The Office or Modern Family style of shooting. And then we're going to have probably like the last hour of just straight up old school MCU action, which I'm in for. I like all of this. I like this hybrid. I like how freaking weird this show is. And I understand that for a lot of people at the beginning of this was hard. This was black and white. In time that something's different or not the norm or not the normal things that we spoon feed people, it can become jarring to get on board. But I think like any pilot that ever exists, any first time episode, especially for sci-fi or things in that nature, the pilots or the first couple episodes are always rough. Um, I didn't think they were rough for this, but I typically there's a like Star Trek, any of those Star Trek series, you have to sort of give them the benefit of the doubt for the first couple episodes. This one, I feel like Marvel has had enough of a cachet built that you will ride this out for a few episodes before you figure out their footing. And I think they have stuck this so well that people will go back now and appreciate more what is happening in those first few episodes. It's like, oh, this makes so much more sense. Now I appreciate this more. And I think the back half is just going to be a slap you in the face every freaking time type of thing. And what do you guys think? What do you guys think is going to happen next? What do you want to happen next? Do you think that this is the new Quicksilver, as Darcy would say, recast Quicksilver for Wanda, or someone playing a very very filthy and dirty game with her? And how long before Vision just says he has enough? Go ahead, leave your comments, thoughts, and opinions in the comments below. If you want, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast by the same name that's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that plays podcasts. We're there. We're currently doing a history of sitcoms through WandaVision. And you can find that, like I said, anywhere podcasts are played. We have a sister podcast called You Can't Do That Anymore, where we talk about classic movies like 16 Candles or American Beauty or Tropic Thunder and discuss what those films did when they came out and if they can do some of those things or all of the things or any of those things today through the eyes of 2021. You can also find that wherever podcasts are played. But like always, I got my chicken. You got yours.